I'm a big fan of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, although one area that I've always felt they struggle in is in handheld shooting. But all this might be about to change. The other week, Blackmagic Design surprised everyone by announcing a new update to the existing Pocket Cinema camera lineup in the form of some new software. It gives all the existing cameras an updated and refreshed interface with a number of new features. But the moment that had most people excited was when Grant Petty, in his dulcet Aussie tones, announced this.
Plus, there's actually a cool secret feature that's been hiding in these pocket cameras, and we've never really used it until now. Now, all these cameras actually have a gyro sensor built in, and all three models have it. So now you can record data from the gyro sensor into the Blackmagic RAW file, and we'll actually have an update for DaVinci Resolve really soon that'll actually use that gyro data.
With the update, the camera is able to include this information as metadata within Blackmagic RAW, and use this data to help stabilize the footage in post. So, like everyone, I downloaded and installed the camera update, updated DaVinci Resolve to the 18 beta version, and began playing around with this new feature. I wanted to test three things. Number one, what is this like with static shots? Is this going to be able to replace tripods? Number two, what is it like with moving shots? Is this going to be able to replace a gimbal? And number three, I wanted to test, is there a difference in performance between the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro and the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K? So this is the footage I recorded, just random B-roll style shots. I was using the 6K Pro and a Sigma 30mm lens, as I knew I'd get some micro jitters shooting with this combo. And I was pretty surprised by the results, both positively and negatively. For recreating locked off shots like a tripod, it does a reasonable job. Although there is still a bit of movement, I think it's pretty usable. Maybe not tripod good, but so much better than my jittery hands. The downside being how much it crops into your footage. You can obviously plan around this and just frame your shots a little wider. The two other problems are a little harder to get around. If you're shooting with a shutter angle of 180 degrees, then any fast movement introduces motion blur. And all the little micro jitters are very fast and cause motion blur that the stabilization can't remove. So you're left with footage that looks like it's drifting in and out of focus or something. I'll talk about a possible fix for this in a second. The second problem is what happens with moire. Moire is most noticeable when an object with a tight pattern moves in front of the camera, or the camera moves when looking at an object with a tight pattern, like this church roof. But when the footage is stabilized, the moire remains. In fact, it looks like it's enhanced in some way. You can get moire in static shots, but I'm pretty sure if this was a locked off shot, it wouldn't be as harsh. Interestingly, I did notice that when I exported the video, the compression reduced the moire quite a bit, so there is a chance that after uploading this video to YouTube, you won't be able to see it, but trust me, it is there. When trying to imitate other tripod movements like pans and tilts, the stabilization is less successful. It does a good job of removing those jitters, but any wobble is too strong for it to remove fully, so it doesn't quite look like the way a tripod would move. It probably performs best when following a subject. The footage still looks kind of handheld, but without those horrible jitters. You could say it looks like a tripod that is not locked off and is free just to float around tracking the subject. So can this feature replace a gimbal? Well, here's some handheld footage. Pretty shaky and totally unusable. Once you add the stabilization, it does a good job of smoothing it out, but we're left with that horrible motion blur. You can actually see this is timed with the rhythm of my feet hitting the floor. The answer to this is shooting at a faster shutter speed to remove any motion blur. This is a shot with a 75-degree shutter angle. Personally, I think this looks very good. A big improvement anyway. So is there any difference between the 6K Pro and the 4K? Not really. They seem to work pretty much the same. The only difference might be in the final image quality. To achieve stabilization, the image is cropped into. So if you're on a 4K timeline, you might lose some resolution if you're also shooting in 4K. Although even if you're shooting in 6K, image stabilization does seem to introduce quite a lot of softness to the image. So 4K might not be the best option going forward if you're looking for complete image quality. Now, I don't want to come across as a whinging pom, but there were a few slight drawbacks to this thing. Number one is that you can't go back and stabilize old footage. Either the metadata was never recorded to the final Blackmagic RAW file in the first place, or for some strange reason Blackmagic have decided to restrict you from accessing it. I'm pretty sure it would be the former, and that's why we needed the camera update. I did manage to crash resolve a few times while using the stabilization and get this weird error message. Now, funnily enough, this wasn't when I was using the gyro stabilization, but when I was switching to one of the other stabilization methods just to test and compare the two. Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve 18 is in beta at the moment, so I sent off the error report to them, and hopefully that will be fixed before it comes out of beta. Finally, you need to calibrate the camera by putting it on a flat surface to get this feature to start working. Now, I don't know if over time it can drift out of sync. There is that possibility that you will need to recalibrate it in the future, but I haven't had long enough to test this. If you do need to recalibrate it out in the field, this could be a problem finding a flat surface. So that could be something that you want to do just every now and again just to recalibrate it, just to be safe. I think it's great that Blackmagic have added this feature. It's great to have a camera company that looks after you and gives you continuous updates even after you've bought the product. And with this feature in particular, if you plan ahead, you can get some fantastic results. What this isn't though is a get out of jail free card for bad footage. You just can't slap this on as an afterthought. I don't think this is going to replace a gimbal for when you want to have shots where you're whizzing around all over the place. The gimbal is still steadier, and it also has the advantage that you can actually see what you're getting straight away, rather than having to go into post and see if the stabilization has given you the result that you're looking for. However, if you don't have a gimbal and you are prepared to take a little time planning ahead, then this is a great feature to have access to. I, for one, am very happy that Blackmagic have included it as an update. If you're planning on getting a 6K Pro and you're looking forward to using this feature, you might appreciate this other video I made about some of the other findings that I've had using that camera over the last year. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. See you in the future. Bye.